photos and the PowerPoint loaded up with Richard onto the superintendent SharePoint site for the August spot, which will be concrete. And we will do the same thing for Morley's presentation, which will follow. Thank you, card, and a couple of shirts for you guys, just to say thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it, and look forward to working with you guys again.
One thing I wanted to add is if you get a tight spec of a 50 FF and a FL, the laser screed is the way to go.
Yeah, the specs.
You can get there. You can get it there very easily. Pouring slabs in the 70s.
Awesome.
So,
All right.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
Just one comment. I had these guys on my job on 9/11, 2001. You guys were doing a pour for me.
Oh, really? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'll never forget.
Thank you. Thank you.
We love Christine too, but I'm going to go ahead and take care of what control.
You want me to do that? I can
want that Friday morning special.
I really am pretty.
What's that? Eric still in? He is.
I can do that. Here.
Thanks, buddy.
I want to go there.
Yeah, it's okay. Slide it down.
Okay, all right. I figured I was offering.
Yeah, no problem. How's everything?
No, I am really good at it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
No comment. Hey.
Yeah.
So I do have this on PowerPoint. I'll give you.
Good.
Sorry, we didn't come prepared with handouts. We have this here.
Okay, hang on.
So while they're playing around trying to get the PowerPoint, I'll just start. Matt had asked me and Jim to come and talk to the superintendent group about issues that we see, you know, on jobs across the spectrum of dealing with general contractors, of you know, just our input of what we think, you know, items that might help you. So as I go back in my 40 years of experience, I go back to some of the things that you know, ended up getting in fights or discussions about, you know, just seeing stuff that, you know, boy, if something was handled a little bit different, it could have saved a lot of heartache. So, I mean, Matt was saying I'd be talking to young superintendents, but I see Bob here, and it's like, I think me and Bob are like the same vintage. So, anyways, so I picked out a few points to talk about, and the first would be pre-construction plan, and just take it from a perspective of a crusty old concrete superintendent, because that's where it's coming. And I've been involved in a lot of pre-construction. I'm sure you guys have, or maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But a lot of times, you know, I refer to it as what lies did the people put together to go sell the job. You know, you know, if you're a superintendent and you've done it, I mean, you know, usually you don't get a lot of time. They give you a set of plans and say, you know, there's a meeting next week, and in between the job that you're running and you're doing, you know, 20 hours a day on, give us a schedule, give us a plan. So in general, what I've seen, I mean, a lot of them aren't thought out. You know, there may be a quick snapshot approach. I mean, I do pre-construction planning for us on the concrete side. And, you know, there was a job we just finished at Qualcomm, and it had 2 tower cranes on it. And I positioned the tower cranes. I'd given it some thought, maybe like an hour of planning. And our guys that were running the job, you know, they came to me. You know, we were successful in getting it. We turned it over to our project team, and you know, they had a lot of angst about, well, you know, we've been looking at these tower cranes, and we think you got them in the wrong place. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, so let's look at them. So, you know, I was pretty definite for my reasons on why they were. And they had put a week's worth of time in it, which with 3 guys working on it for a week was a hell of a lot more in-depth input than me in an hour. And so sure enough, the tower cranes were positioned the way they wanted. It was the right way. Both of them would have worked. Theirs was much more user-friendly and a way better application, but it just demonstrates that we had the tower cranes, we had some 3D models and stuff, and the tower cranes were located where I had them, and like I say, it sold the job, but just from the point that typically, they're not as accurate as they should be. And if you guys are superintendents, from a sub, you're the leader of the task. We're looking for direction, and we want you to know that you guys have looked at it, and you know that you're going to start from A, you're going to B, you're going from up to down or right to left or whatever it is. And it's not because someone threw a plan together and you inherited it, it's because you're a builder and you figured it out, and here's the conditions, and this is why we have to go that way. So that's just one of the things, like I say, the pre-construction. You want to flip the next one? Site logistics. Just in basic, big picture stuff, it seems like more of the jobs we're getting and building in our current careers now, you don't have the big wide open space like some of the pictures that these slab guys were showing. You're either congested on a downtown site or areas where you just don't have a lot of laydown area, and you really don't have a lot of options on how to execute a job. And you go with us guys from the concrete, after you do whatever kind of utility location and digging a hole, then we're there. And from a concrete guy's perspective, there's a couple things that are pretty basic. First of all, you want to start the furthest away from your access to whatever you're working on. That's common sense. You want to get your deepest part first if you can. You don't want to build up high and then try to bring, down from a hole. So just those basic things of starting far away and starting at the deepest. I mean, it's common sense, but from a concrete point of view, if you don't get that, stuff gets really expensive and cumbersome to try to have to build back over on top of yourself. Also, it gets to be a big deal if you start leaving pieces out for whatever reason. Maybe there's valid reasons. SDG&E room isn't designed yet, so you can't afford it. But when you start building your way out, it's way different from framing or different trades. I mean, we're not as mobile, and once we build something, it gets much more difficult and costly and time-consuming to try to reach back in and do something. So just, basic logistics, certainly, you guys looking and involving a job, I would at least, weigh in on a concrete guy's perspective. It might, give you something that you, hadn't thought of, or, maybe some options on how to accomplish the same thing. But a critical part where, decisions made early on in maybe just the vacuum of a GC without, your subcontractor's input, can cause you a lot of heartache. We really like to work with you guys ahead of time, and then we think we've got good ideas, and we've built a lot of stuff, and we messed up a lot of stuff and had to fix a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of experience that we can share with you and help you guys. What's the next one? Trade interface. Seems to be an issue, that we deal with. I mean, we're typically taking something from the grader and then having to turn it over to your framing or finish trades. So when we receive a pad, we're talking about receiving it usually plus or minus 1/10 of an inch, which, about 1/10 of a foot, excuse me, about 2 inches. The grader can be about that close. And then we have to deliver it to, depending on what the FF and FL are, maybe within 3/8 of an inch, and just understanding, what each trade, what the guy that delivers it us to is obligated to do. Because I mean, if he leaves it way too high or way too low out of scope, I mean, that's extra work that we have to do that's, you know, money that we didn't bid. I mean, everything's so tight, you know, so understanding how we deliver it, you know, and then what is our product that we're supposed to deliver? I mean, I can tell you across the board, we never sign up for perfect. You know, we're always signing up to whatever the specs are, and concrete floors can have humps and bumps and dips in them and still be acceptable per spec, you know, and we run into the same stuff that, I mean, that you guys do, that if door frames don't line up or cabinets or whatever, you know, and it's like, you know, okay, maybe we're allowed 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, and maybe they want a 1/16 of an inch, so it's like, where's the balancing point, you know, and it's just, you know, good to understand that, and, you know, discussions, I mean, if there are some areas that, you know, maybe require a tremendous amount of extra effort, or, you know, that something is really critical with a finish, you know, certainly something that, you know, would hope that you guys would be clued in with your finished trades or whatever, to let us know plenty ahead of time that, hey, we got this one room that's got some really fancy stuff in it, and you gotta be dead on, or it can't handle the slope, or it's got weird doors, or whatever, but just, you know, how they act, react, and deal with this. Another thing, probably falls into the category of pet peeve of grouchy old concrete superintendents, but when you're on big deck buildings, I mean, you know, big structures, it's like a rebar and concrete show with the trades mixed in. And I know it becomes a common point of discussion that the trades need their time on the deck, but it's like, if you have 30 concrete guys and 20 iron workers working crazy to make an 8-day schedule, there's not 2 days worth of time for 3 electricians to put cans in there. You know, I mean, it's, how do they work in, you know, what we come to the table with is, you know, if the deck is so big, if we get the first quarter done, we're big advocates of safing that off and letting people get in. You know, we don't like to think in, if we're thinking that, you know, no one can get on the deck, or we're not gonna clean it up till we have it all done, there's real estate there that with a little bit of effort could be utilized by the next trade. Try to smooth it out, you know, try to give them, and we know everybody needs their opportunity to get their stuff in and to pour, but just understanding and dealing with that, you know, being proactive on it. Next thing, equipment. Just, I mean, for our portions of the work, you know, what you see here is typical pieces of equipment that we have on most jobs. I mean, there's a mobile crane, concrete pump, and a tower crane. And, you know, our views of how, I mean, we do it a lot. We feel we're pretty good at utilizing it. You know, I know that there are, you know, other people in the industry that look at it differently than us, but, you know, we basically use tower cranes for hoisting. Occasionally we pour concrete with them, but we just see that as too valuable of a tool to be moving material around to tie it up for long lengths of time with concrete. So anything vertical, I mean, like at the library with you guys, we had a 39-meter placing boom. We had 2 or 3 locations, and we would fly that around because, and I mean, and even with 2 cranes, the hook time was crazy. I mean, there was just not enough time in the day, you know, to be moving all the rebar and formwork and then trade picks, if you were going to try to pour columns or walls or something, or even decks with a tower crane. I mean, in some unusual cases, you know, we might opt towards that, but typically, if it's on a job, it's moving material and being you know, producing product that way. So what else we got? Jim, was there one more? Quality. Yeah. So I know Jim's going to talk more in depth about quality, but just in general, what I've got to say about it is understand, you know, to the depth, if you're going to be responsible for accepting our work or being involved in acceptance of our work, understand what criteria we're contractually obligated to give. I mean, it's a lot of times where, I mean, when you look at certain walls or vertical elements, depending on what they are, they're if you read into how they're supposed to be viewed and approved, some of them are from 10 feet away, some of them for 20 feet away. And I mean, it's amazing how many discussions I'll have where someone says, I don't like this concrete. Well, okay, why don't you like it? Well, if it was me or it was my house, I wouldn't like this, this, and that. Well, it's like, okay, but it's not you and it's not your house. You know, so just understand the criteria of what, you know, of what we're producing. I mean, is it structural? You know, does it have an architectural, you know, component to it? But just basically understanding what criteria we're going to be judged on really helps. And certainly we can, you know, bring that to it, because it does, on the acceptance, especially of architectural, it does get pretty technical. This is one of the jobs we're doing up in Malibu. It's interesting. It's a beach house. We are concrete subcontractors.
That's a beach house.
That's a beach house. Our concrete
That's the driveway entry.
subcontracting, our subcontract is about $20 million, and all we're doing is concrete. It's 60,000 feet. I helped them do some logistics, and I set a tower crane, positioned it in their swimming pool that had 170 feet of reach and still couldn't hit all four corners of the building. But anyways, it's kind of cool that some guy whose daddy owns a bunch of soap operas, so, and it's like museum quality stuff. But anyways, that's just touching on some points.
You were talking about quality.
Yes.
So here's a situation where it's somebody's home.
Yes.
So it's it's 1 foot away, you can't have any imperfections or?
Yeah, pretty much. This guy, I mean, when you're a billionaire and you're spending $20 million on concrete on your house, then yeah, all rules are off. I mean, they wanted to, I think, kill our superintendent because all of this plywood is one use. And the guy has an elevator in his house, and typically it's not a glass elevator, so you don't see the back. On one piece, he used a sheet twice. He took one off these walls and happened to use it on the back of the elevator pit, and oh my God, you thought it was the end of the frickin' world. I mean, we heard about that stuff for 6 months, probably still hearing about it. And his position was, I know nobody can see it, but I know it's like that. And it's like, okay, what do you do? I mean, but, so the quality, I mean, the architect is out of Japan. They didn't like some of the sack and patch guys, so they brought some Japanese sack and patch guys to touch it, and they screwed it up, and we have some pretty darn good guys. I mean, but it was interesting. I mean, it's really, it was a fun structure, but anyway.
So we're going to keep talking about quality. This is a good kind of transition. But this is the rare situation, and obviously we're here because we're dealing with everyday projects. There's not often are we coming across projects like this where it is their own house and it is them. But to that end, we can talk about quality. That's the $1 million question most of the time when we come to a project, and it's, is this concrete quality concrete? And that's the question everyone asks. They ask at the beginning in pre-construction, right? The owner's usually concerned with that. We're asking it through the bidding phase, where we're trying to price how much effort we put into every piece of concrete, and it's at the end of the job when you guys are walking on punch list with the owner, that comes up as, hey, how are we going to finish this job off? Is it what we bought? And that's what the owner's asking for. So that is an elusive question, and the old saying goes, with beauty is in the eye of the beholder. With quality, we're trying to move it along a spectrum from being just a notion of the subjective idea to an objective definition of what quality is for concrete. And so to help with that, ACI is American Concrete Institute.